Hey, friend, it's great to be with you on this episode of the Church Tips Podcast, and we are so privileged today to have my good friend Nichole Schreiber as the lead pastor of Erie First Assembly in Pennsylvania, and she's sliced off a little time to talk to us today. Nichole, great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a privilege, and I'm just so excited to talk a little bit today. I'm a big proponent of Leaders.Church. I've gleaned a lot of great wisdom over the years, and so I'm glad to just give back a little bit about some things I've learned.
Well, it's gone both ways, and we very much appreciate all that you're doing there at that great church. You know, you're at a church with rich history, and you came in here. You've been lead pastor how long now?
About 7 years.
Oh my goodness! Can you believe that?
Yeah. No. And the church is about 100 years old. So it has been in our community for a long time. Lots of incredible leaders have gone before me. I'm standing on the shoulders of many of them. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, today we're going to talk about the issue that is not new to the church, and that's the issue of navigating change. And I'll tell you, I'm a generation ahead of Nichole. And our generation faced it and is facing it. Her generation is facing it. It really applies to everyone. And the principles Nichole is going to talk to us about today, really all of us need to take to heart. So give us a jump start on this, Nichole, to maybe give you a piece of your journey that really brought you to the point where you're going to talk about the things you got today.
So when I came 7 years ago, there was definitely parts of the church that needed a jump start, a revitalization, if you will. Some maybe things that had been going on for some time, but were maybe like dead ministries, but they were just part of who we were. And even some of our facility needed fresh eyes. And I think one of the advantages of having a new leader was I could really see the things that needed changed. We shake at that word, right? That change word. But there was a lot of people here in my great church who just really didn't want anything to change. And they didn't see anything wrong with the way we were doing it. And what's that old adage? Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Although lots of things were broke. But change is scary and change is hard sometimes, to understand. And so when I got here, there were a lot of things that we really needed to reevaluate and to look at. And one of the things I really realized is that the only way for an organization to grow and remain strong is to change. Yeah. And so if you're not willing to do that, you're always moving in the trajectory of downward, right? If you're not willing to change. And so I can remember one just really quick story. We had these big, long, pink pews, in our sanctuary, like many churches built in the 80s. And I just wanted to...
They were pink?
Mauve, please. Mauve, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to remove a couple so that there would be a space for maybe wheelchairs or people with strollers, just give it a little space. And so we took those pews out and we, zaza'd them out and took them out and they were kind of over near like the barn where we were going to get rid of them. And people came to church and I was just so oblivious to the fact that this would be a problem. And they were just so mad. It was like I was burned the Bible, turned my, I became turned my back on everything. They were so angry. And in fact, one sweet man came up to me and he said, I paid for that pew with my tithe in 1985. And I had no idea that this would be the reaction to this in my mind, very small change of just making the seating a little different. But people very much held on to their traditions. So have you ever had an experience like that where people got upset about a small change?
Yeah. And the thing is, I've said about change, because people say, people they don't like change. They don't. And I said, the reality is, I don't know that people don't like change. People fear loss. And so your illustration there, that guy began to see him losing his church. Yeah. Or losing control or losing an investment, if that's the way he viewed that. So, but yeah, it's there. And things we think are small, got to think them all the way through.
Yeah.
For some people.
I think too, generationally, like you mentioned, we're a little bit of different generations. And so things that are important to me might be different than the things that are important to a different generation.
Yeah.
And so what I found was there was a generation of people that could care less about those pews, that if they were there or not. But there was a generation that really, really cared about
Yeah.
those. And
Yeah.
and I, as a leader, I did not have the sensitivity to that I learned to have, I guess, as I went on. The other thing about change is oftentimes when something gets changed, people think, oh, well, the last thing we did was wrong or bad, or villainize it in some way. And so I came in and said, okay, we're going to change this program. And they would say, well, what's wrong with it? There's nothing bad about it. But something to change does not mean it's wrong or bad, or
Right.
we have to say, oh, that was terrible. It's just different now, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that's very hard as all generations, right? That we kind of deal with that.
Exactly. Okay, so you're going to head into change. You've been doing this now for 7 years. You had those early years, and you were learning things along the way. What are some either questions or whatever that you process as you're beginning to think about the next thing that you need to make a change in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the really big questions that I've learned to ask over time is this God's will? This change, is this God's will and God's timing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to kind of piece together that there are two important pieces to a big decision. The first is to seek the wisdom from God, to know how to tackle the obstacle or the situation. But then the second one is to really understand when you should do it, the wisdom, the discernment to know when to actually implement that plan. I think there's been a lot of times my team and I have maybe identified a problem, brainstormed a solution, prayed about it, and we were ready to implement it. But there was that little bit of, check in your spirit, or like, this just doesn't seem quite right. Yeah. And it wasn't that we weren't confident that the solution, we had the solution, we had it. But the confidence came in when was the timing of that change, because I think a good plan executed at the wrong time can actually create a lot more difficulty than solution,
Exactly.
And so some questions to ask just to determine God's timing is like, when does this logically fit into the calendar that I already have implemented? Why change something that doesn't naturally fit? Can you do it when a season ends, or a staff member is departing, or there's a global pandemic? Hopefully that doesn't happen again, but is there a right time in the calendar or type of year or season, that makes the most sense to implement the change? I think asking that question is almost as important as asking God the plan to change the thing.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so, you come to a conclusion that this is God's will and it's the right time. Mm-hmm. So what's the next step?
Yeah. So I think the next thing I really learned, and I'm still learning in this process, is I have to think to myself, how can I make this change in phases? And so I think oftentimes what happens is you've thought about it as the leader, right? You've processed it. You've thought about it when you're brushing your teeth at night. You've talked about it with your spouse. Maybe you've talked about it with your team ad nauseum. Everybody knows the vision. They know what you're going to do. But you have to remember that when you go tell your congregation, it may be the very first time they're hearing about it. And so for them to get their minds around what it is that you're doing, or why you're doing it, is really different. And so I think a lot of times one of the things we have to remember to do is first cast vision. This is why we're going to change this. This is the reason. If I would have told the congregation, I'm praying that the Lord reaches more young moms who are going to bring strollers into this sanctuary. So therefore, I'm going to take these pews out so that these young moms have a place to bring their baby and rock their baby. That would have been a whole different conversation. But instead, I got the pew out, threw it to the garbage, at the garbage dump. And then I had some angry people. And so I realized that really, we're strongly communicating the vision and then thinking through the steps that it would take to get there. That would really, if you will, pace the change, so that you can get to where you're going. And I think as a leader, oftentimes we want if we see a solution, all leaders just want to get there, right? Because you want to live in the solution. But when I have paced my change, and I know where we're going, that's what vision is. But I'm walking out the steps to get there. I have found that people go with me. And what's leadership? People follow you. If no one's following you, you're not leading anybody, right? And so, and I think of this, it's kind of a silly saying, but how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so if you have a situation, a context that you want to change something, a big thing, a big change, think of the next best step. And then do that thing, and then do the next thing, and you can really walk people, into that preferred future, into that vision, without as much conflict or resistance. They're coming with you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, you've processed that this is God's will. This is the right timing of it, and you put a plan in place where it phases in. And I'm guessing that phasing would be different from situation to situation. But you've laid that plan out. So what's next? Are you done, or is there another?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things when managing change also is to take some time, obviously, to visualize the end result, which I think all leaders do, but to really think about what success looks like after that change is implemented, right? How will this help you honor God more? How will this benefit your organization? And I think by doing that, first of all, you can kind of probably anticipate any trouble spots that you might encounter, but also it allows you to measure if the change was successful. Because if there's nothing to compare it to, you never know if you hit the target, So, and it's one of those things where it's like, if you have a plumb line to measure, you're able to say, hey, we made this change and we did it. So I'll give another example. We were very stuck on Wednesday night worship service, Sunday morning worship service, right? That was very much the kind of format of churches for a long time. And when we moved from that to a small group system where we were asking people to meet in homes and to meet, every night of the week in different homes and pick a small group that fits them and whatnot, that was a big change. And people were, I don't know, Pastor, all they saw was you're canceling Wednesday night service. Well, I wasn't canceling Wednesday night service.
They thought they're losing their Wednesday service.
Yes. What
and you're
doing,
if they're gaining something.
Exactly. We are gaining more discipleship. But what I had to do was, when I visualized the change and said, okay, we are going to stop doing Wednesday night service. And our prayer is that 25% more of people, so let's say we were at 25% of people were coming to Wednesday service, that 50% of our whole church would be in a discipling small group having conversations about the Lord outside of Sunday. And so once we made the big leap, right? The big change. We phased out. We gave them lots of time. Okay, it's January and we're going to stop doing this service in May. We're going to have, 4 more months. Okay, guys, there's 3 more months. There's 2 more months, And when we stopped that and went to the small group system, I was able to report back to the church in celebration, hey, we have now increased our attendance to small groups by 25%. And now 200 people are in discipling, conversations instead of 100, right? But if I hadn't decided where I wanted to go and what the goal was, all we would do is look back and say, well, yeah, we stopped doing the Wednesday night service, and then, like you said, it counts it as loss and not as gain.
Yeah, exactly. These 3 questions or points that you have been so valuable. Really, I hope the viewers and the listeners will replay this, not only in their mind, but literally go through it again, because the content you're talking about is so helpful to every pastor, every church leader. You're going to make change. You're going to make a transition in the church somehow. And these things are so helpful. Nichole, if somebody's listening to this, they haven't caught a thing you said, what is one thing you want them to remember as we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I think it would be that as you are leading and God gives you incredible ideas, to every time submit your idea fully to the Lord. Every detail, every decision, every speed bump, every naysayer, right? Submit it all to the Lord. And just really expect God to blow your expectations out of the water, because he is always working to advance the kingdom. So if we can get on his board to do the changes that he wants us to do to reach more people, we know, like he says in Romans 8:28, he causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so as we decide to make change, don't do it alone. Do it with God in every piece of it, and prayerfully consider it. He never tires of us asking even the details of things, and asking him to help us, guide us. And I think that's really going to put us in a position to reach more people for the kingdom, which is the point. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. Nichole, thank you very much. You have been a gift to the Church Tips podcast today. We are so thankful for you spending time with us. And to the listener and the viewer, we certainly would love to have you rate and review this podcast and any others that are in the Church Tips podcast, and certainly spread the word. Forward it along. Love to have you subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, click that subscribe button and gain the content that's going to help you advance your church. God's given you a great opportunity. Nichole has helped us with one area that affects all of us as pastors and leaders, and we're grateful for that. But to the viewer and the listener, take it to heart. God has great plans in store for you, and you're going to be able to navigate the change the Lord's put before you. So again, Nichole, thank you very much for being with us today. We really have loved the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Make it a great one today, friends, and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here, real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.